Rosa DeLauro doesn't hold back as she grills Secretary Kristi Noem over massive cuts to FEMA. She demands answers on why vital programs that protect communities from disasters could be slashed and asks, where is the evidence that FEMA is failing? With $646 million on the line, this is about more than politics. It's about lives, safety, and accountability. Stay tuned as we break down this intense showdown.
Thank you, Madam Ranking Member. The floor now belongs to the gentlelady from Connecticut, the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, who got here as quick as she could. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. My God, this is twice in one day here, so it's great to see you. We're hearing hopping here. Thank you so much, and I want to thank the ranking member Underwood for holding the hearing today, and welcome to you, Madam Secretary, and thank you for appearing before the subcommittee today. I just want to begin with a message to your workforce, if I might, and that's I'm grateful, very grateful for the work that they do, from search and rescue efforts of the Coast Guard to our first responders around the ground after natural disasters to those keeping us safe in the air and on the ground and at sea. I want to start with some big picture questions because I think we know very little of the details about where the $646 million cuts within FEMA's grant programs will come from. It is no secret that there are numerous reports of you, if we need to correct the record, stating that you want to, quote, eliminate FEMA within the Department of Homeland Security. I'm concerned about the direction that the administration is taking with regard to FEMA, canceling programs like BRIC, a program enacted into law by President Trump in his first term without any evidence of waste, fraud, and abuse, alongside the freezing of grants, and now 2026 budget requests targeting even more of FEMA's resources. And right now, in terms of looking at the cancellations, the Science and Technology Directors, Centers of Excellence, and Office of University Programs, as I mentioned, the FEMA-administered grant programs frozen virtually all grant obligations pending a review as it determines whether it will try to choke off funding for unacceptable political reasons. Resources for states and communities to respond to disasters, secure firefighting equipment, protect against terrorism, secure our ports, and much more is being held up. And as I mentioned, the cancellation of the BRIC program, funding to support hazard mitigation, reduce the toll of future disasters, save lives. That money's not going out. Research has shown mitigation efforts like BRIC save a minimum of $6 for every dollar invested and save more than double when including mitigation of economic impacts. So federal disaster relief should be readily available across the United States, regardless of where you live. Natural disasters happen everywhere. They should not be concerned about the federal government turning their back on them when they need the help the most. We need to give constituents what they need when they're facing tragedy, that they will not be stranded due to political discord. My ask of you is, what is your plan with regard to FEMA? Are you planning to eliminate FEMA? Your testimony references that you want to, quote, eliminate dysfunction of the current agency. I'm unclear, I don't know if my colleagues are clear on what you mean by dysfunction. And I'm concerned that you're causing more dysfunction within the workforce that should be preparing itself for the pending hurricane season.
Well, thank you for your question and the discussion on this topic today. President Trump has been very clear since the beginning that he believes that FEMA and its response in many, many circumstances has failed the American people, and that FEMA as it exists today should be eliminated and empowering states to respond to disasters with federal government
if you'll just,
support.
With all due respect, where is the evidence of the failure of FEMA? I don't know about everybody else on this. My state, Connecticut, was hit very, very hard. with Superstorm Sandy. Every community in some way or another has been hit by that. And the FEMA on the ground, people come in, work with the families, deal with getting the funding out. Where is the evidence of the failure of FEMA?
Congresswoman, we still have claims open from Hurricane Katrina. We have fire claims that are still unpaid to people who said they were due them 7 to 8 to 10 years old. They have never been paid by FEMA. So one of the worst things that the federal government can do is to stand up in front of the American public and say, we will be there, we will walk alongside you in the most horrible time of your life, and then never follow through on it.
Well, that's
what the president has said is he's sick and tired of federal agencies that pick and choose who wins and who loses. He wants to make sure that the federal government's commitment, when it makes a commitment, that it follows through. So he's going to empower states.
The federal government is abdicating its commitment to the American people who find themselves.
It did certainly under Joe Biden's administration. Now President Trump's going to make sure
let me just say this to you. The Office of Professional Responsibility. The Office of Professional, because I knew you were going to go there. As you know, FEMA's Office of Professional Responsibility, under the Biden administration, there was no evidence, no direction or agency or field leadership to discriminate against disaster victims based on political affiliation, which was in charge.
I'll follow up with you.
Well, and I will follow up. I will follow up, and I follow up with my colleagues, quite frankly, and to really listen to people whose states, communities have been devastated, and what role FEMA has played. I don't know how many millions and millions of dollars went out in Louisiana. Actually, I've asked my staff to calculate that when Katrina hit. And the response was overwhelming. And the response has been overwhelming. If you want to make corrections, that's fine. We all agree with that.
Yeah, we can point to thousands and thousands of
well, if you wouldn't mind getting this committee, the information and the evidence where you talk about the dysfunction of the agency and where it has really failed, that would be important to those of us who are appropriating dollars. And it would appear that the administration overall has a way in which they're looking at dismantling the federal government. The states will never have the amount of money because the federal government isn't going to pass that money to the states to be able to deal with what happens. It's when the federal government comes in and be able to give a hand to do that. And I think it's very clear from what you said that both yourself and the president really want to dismantle the federal government and the agencies that have provided service to the American people for decades. I thank the chair for your time and yield back.
Today's exchange between Rosa DeLauro and Secretary Kristi Noem isn't just another routine congressional hearing. It's a deep dive into how federal agencies like FEMA are structured, how they allocate resources, and what accountability really looks like when disaster strikes. DeLauro opens by grounding the conversation in the lived experiences of Americans, reminding everyone that disasters, whether hurricanes, floods, or wildfires, don't wait for budgets, political debates, or partisan squabbles. She emphasizes that FEMA's mission is not just about issuing checks or grants on paper, it's about ensuring communities can respond, recover, and rebuild. This isn't abstract policy. These are lives, homes, and local economies at stake. When DeLauro questions the planned $646 million cuts to FEMA's grant programs, she's shining a spotlight on a crucial point. Disaster preparedness is proactive, not reactive. Programs like BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, aren't bureaucratic red tape. They are scientifically backed interventions that save both lives and money. Research consistently shows that every dollar invested in hazard mitigation returns multiple dollars in avoided damages. Reducing funding here doesn't just make FEMA less effective, it leaves families, schools, hospitals, and small businesses exposed to preventable devastation. Noem's response frames the administration's approach as an attempt to eliminate dysfunction within FEMA, arguing that states should be empowered to respond. But here's the critical takeaway for viewers. Delegation without capacity is meaningless. States rely on federal coordination, funding, and technical expertise to handle the scale of modern disasters. DeLauro presses on this point by asking for concrete evidence of FEMA's failures cited by the administration. Her insistence is not political posturing. It's a core principle of governance. Accountability requires evidence. Saying an agency is failing without showing measurable examples is like claiming a lifeboat is sinking while people are still on board but refusing to check for leaks. The discussion also surfaces an important lesson about federalism in practice. Disaster response is a shared responsibility. Local governments are the first responders. States provide larger-scale coordination, and the federal government ensures resources are sufficient and equitable. DeLauro's line of questioning highlights what happens when that balance is threatened. Cuts or reorganization without transparency can slow recovery, create bottlenecks in aid distribution, and even exacerbate inequalities between communities hit by disasters. As the exchange wraps up, viewers should recognize the broader implications. The debate over FEMA isn't just about dollars on a spreadsheet. It's about the reliability of the federal government as a guarantor of safety in moments of crisis. DeLauro's insistence on evidence, clarity, and accountability underscores a universal principle for governance. Policies and agencies only succeed when they are transparent, data-driven, and directly tied to the real-world outcomes they are meant to improve. In short, this hearing is a vivid illustration of why oversight matters, why legislators press for clarity, and why citizens should care about budget cuts framed as efficiency measures. The takeaways are clear. Preparedness saves lives. Evidence-based policies protect communities, and robust federal support can't simply be replaced by rhetoric or assumptions. If you want to stay informed on these critical debates and understand how decisions in Congress directly affect communities across the country, subscribe to Left Lens. We break down the politics, unpack the policy, and show you not just what happened, but why it matters and what you should be watching next.